All right. Well, once again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Kira, whenever you're ready to hit record, I'm ready to get started.
Yep, we're ready to go.
Great. I'm David Shapiro. I'm the program manager of HealthLinks. We are a signature outreach program at the Center for Health, Work, and Environment at the Colorado School of Public Health. And I'm really excited for today's webinar, Taking Care of Ourselves. I've been in a lot of conversations this week about how hard it is to believe that it's been, about a year since we were sent to various remote work situations. And part of our intention with today's webinar is really to honor that it's been a year. It's been a really challenging year for everyone, but also to highlight and have some gratitude for the resilience that you all have shown, that our center has shown, that our partners have shown. I think there's been just amazing strength and resilience that has come out of this really difficult situation. So along those lines, we want to continue by helping you build additional skills to take care of yourselves and the people you care about in the next phase of this pandemic journey. Our sponsor for this webinar series is Pinnacol Assurance. They've been a longtime sponsor and partner of our center, the Center for Health, Work, and Environment. And we just want to thank them for all of the work that they do on promoting health, safety, and well-being for the workers of Colorado. A few housekeeping items. You'll see also a few messages popping up in the chat. If you have any technical assistance issues, we're here to help with that. Everyone is on mute throughout this entire presentation. We will have an opportunity to respond to questions and provide answers in the Q&A session after our panelists have given their presentations. As I mentioned, if you have any technical issues that come up, please use the chat function. Our webinar is being recorded and we will post it to our YouTube channel so that you can share it with your colleagues, and for those registrants that weren't able to attend, they'd be able to access it as well. And I'll mention this again towards the end of the presentation, but we really appreciate feedback. Everything we do, we try and measure, and we want to make sure we're meeting the needs of our audience. And so as you exit the webinar at the end of the hour today, a link will pop up to complete a survey, and we really appreciate your feedback on our presenters, on the presentation itself, and what additional suggestions and needs you may have. So our agenda for today, I'm going to give a high-level overview of trends we've seen related to workplace health and safety over the past year. We're going to go through a desk stretching exercise, followed by some mindfulness. And then we're also going to have a role play opportunity to speak about effective communication strategies and how to handle conflict or difficult conversations. And then, as I mentioned, we have the opportunity to have a question and answer session with our panelists. So it's a high level overview of our agenda. I'm excited to welcome you all for this sort of very practice-based webinar today. I'm going to introduce our panelists. We have Trevor Cassidy. Trevor is a group fitness manager at the CU Anschutz Health and Wellness Center. He teaches yoga, CX Works, and Body Pump. Trevor is motivated by having fun, and he believes that enjoyment is critical to sticking with a new routine. He recommends finding a class that you love, a trainer who makes you laugh, or a workout friend that you like to hang out with, and you start to walk out of the gym with more energy than you came in with. For his own fun, every weekend, Trevor and his family go to La Cueva Restaurante in Denver, on Colfax and Dayton. He orders the #3 combination plate with green chili and eats an entire basket of chips. And he's done this for 26 years. He also likes to ski fast, bake cookies, pet his dogs, and memorize Nicki Minaj lyrics. Thanks, Trevor, for joining us today. We also have Debbie Belt. She's passionate about the effective implementation of mental health technology in both clinical and community settings. As a licensed clinical psychologist, she has a deep background in research, which has fueled her desire to ensure that evidence-based approaches are utilized in mental health and technology. After earning her doctorate from CU Boulder and completing her internship internship at UC San Diego, the Veterans Administration Program, Dr. Belt expanded her knowledge of digital health as a postdoctoral fellow at the Scripps Research Translational Institute. She has extensive training in evidence-based treatments for mental health, including cognitive, behavioral, and mindfulness-based therapies. And as Deputy Director at the National Mental Health Innovation Center, Debbie leads efforts focused on accelerating the implementation of new innovations into mental health. And we also have Alex Reed, Dr. Alex Reed with us today. Alex is the Director of Behavioral Health Education at the University of Colorado Family Medicine Residency, and he's an assistant professor in the Department of Family Medicine at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. Dr. Reed has worked across the country in family medicine as an educator and clinician for 21 years. He's been a team psychologist for the Denver Nuggets since 2018, go Nuggets. Dr. Reed holds a doctorate of psychology from the Illinois School of Professional Psychology, Chicago, and a master's in public health from the University of Kansas. He completed a 2-year fellowship in primary care psychology from the University of Massachusetts School of Medicine and a 1-year public health leadership program with the Kansas Public Health Leadership Institute. Dr. Reed's current research and educational interests include behavioral health in primary care, using improvisation skills to enhance communication skills in healthcare and provider well-being. And as I mentioned from the outset, I'm David Shapiro, Program Manager at HealthLinks. Welcome again to all of you participating on our webinar today, and thank you so much to our panelists and our expert presenters. Before we get into our practical-based exercises, I just wanted to provide some trends that we've seen as we've conducted advising with hundreds of employers over the past year. You know, it was really interesting. I was thinking back to a year ago. We hosted our first COVID town hall webinar around May 20th of 2020, and it was nerve-wracking. Everybody was sort of zooming in from home and maybe wasn't used to the remote workspace, and we've continued to talk and elevate the conversation about total worker health, about health, safety, and well-being over the course of the past year. And some trends that we've seen in our both our webinars and our advising sessions have been really a renewed focus on safety. You know, obviously occupational safety is something that's important all the time. And now more than ever, sort of safety is sort of in front of us, whether we're wearing a mask at work and practicing physical distancing. You know, cleaning products have entered the workplace more than ever before. Signage that is telling us more about the importance of being safe and maintaining safety while at work. And so there's been sort of a really a coming together of the health and well-being world with safety in this past year, more so than we've seen before. Another thing we've seen since the outset of the pandemic, and this continues, is that clear and consistent communication really is critical for maintaining a focus on total worker health. Once again, we see this in crisis communications and what has come out with consistent messaging of how to handle ourselves in the workplace or out in society. But once again, now more than ever, being very clear and consistent as you're communicating with your team members is a key theme that's emerged in the past year. This third item has been really a challenge for a lot of organizations: how to promote social connection during physical distancing. You know, I think there's been ebbs and flows in the ability of organizations to provide social connection. I think a lot of us are experiencing Zoom fatigue and are looking for other ways to connect with our colleagues, especially now that we're sort of a year into this. Maybe in the beginning of the pandemic, organizations tried things like even Zoom happy hours and other ways to connect for people, and now they're moving into other strategies. And I'm happy to talk more about some of the strategies we've seen through the advising process with HealthLinks. Things like getting to know your colleagues better, you know, more one-on-one meetings and phone calls. The return of picking up the phone and talking to people are ways that organizations have really tried to instill social connection while we continue to physically distance. You know, obviously prioritizing mental health is something that's important to our center and important across the country, and has come up a lot. Parts of the impact of isolation and physical distancing has really taken its toll on mental health. Not to mention the trauma that we've all experienced from participating or being part of this global pandemic for the past year. So more than ever, we're seeing organizations really prioritize mental health as part of their total worker health agenda. And also this idea that COVID-19 risk is the co-occurring aspect of disease, comorbidity, and mortality. We've been working pretty closely with the Department of Public Health and Environment on diabetes prevention, on cardiovascular disease, and ways that workplaces can begin these conversations or sustain these conversations. And I think what we've obviously all learned from COVID is, the risk goes up exponentially if you're, suffering from one of these diseases. So how organizations handle, manage, and prevent chronic conditions is another trend that's come up. And there's been obviously lots of additional trends, but these are 5 themes that I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that we've seen across the board come up regardless of the workplace sort of size and sector, that are really trends that are going on in the workplace health and safety world. Happy to respond to any questions about this as when we get to the Q&A section, but at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our panelist, Trevor Cassidy, for a little bit of explanation on stretching.
All right, thank you so much, David, and thank you to HealthLinks and the Center for Health, Work, and Environment for inviting me today. I'm so excited to be here with you all. Okay, so again, my name's Trevor Cassidy. I am the Group Fitness Manager at the Anschutz Health and Wellness Center on the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. So I'm coming to you from the Fitness Center today to talk about sitting, which I think is something we're all familiar with since last March. And I'll just get right into it. I hope the biggest thing that you come away from this part of the panel with is reframing what it means to have a physically demanding job. Because if you're in a seated position, if you're holding any position for 4 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours a day, that's really intense. That is a physically demanding thing for your body. So, I think it's okay to say, hey, I'm going to treat myself like an athlete and make sure that I'm doing some cross training, I'm doing some stretching, and I'm taking care of myself because I need to be at my desk for my job. So I have a physically demanding job. So I just want you to own that today. And we're going to talk a little bit about first kind of what can happen when we're sitting for a long time, many days in a row. And then, of course, what you can do to kind of combat some of those challenges. So really, we've got this great picture here of someone working at their desk, and it tells you everything that's going on, right? We see shoulders coming forward, the upper back is kind of spreading open, and in terms of the low body, kind of this crunched position with you've got your knees up towards your chest and your knees are flexed, and you're holding this for hours and hours. So what happens is your brain is telling the muscles in your body, okay, we have to get into this position. So, okay, this muscle you lengthen, okay, this muscle you need to shorten. And it's sending through these neurological pathways to your muscles, it's sending that message. You lengthen, you shorten, and we'll get into this position. And then you're in that position for hours. So what happens is, over time, your brain gets really good at that. It gets really good at getting you here and holding you here. So, okay, that's great. But the problem is when we get out of this position to go do something else, to walk the dog, to go on a hike, to ride our bike, then that's happening in the background still. Your brain those pathways are so strong, that connection to those muscles, this one long, this one short, it's so strong that it can actually alter your biomechanics when you go to do those other things. Because now, we're asking for something else. it kind of breaks down what's supposed to be happening in favor of kind of where we are in our sitting position. Those muscles tend to fire more readily, lengthen more readily, shorten more readily. So over time, that muscle imbalance creates pain and injury. So that's kind of the bummer about working at the desk many hours a day. But David, let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So what can we do? Well, there's a few things that work great. Strength conditioning, incorporating strength training into your exercise routine. That is critical. That does so much, not only for your body, but for your mental health. We're just seeing more and more studies that show the importance of strength training. Massage is another great way to kind of get in there, stimulate blood flow, and get your muscles operating the way that they should be normally. But maybe all you have is 5 minutes at your desk. So a quick stretch just to disrupt that shape, that seated position, can make all the difference. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to focus on these main little muscle groups. And I try to come up with a cute acronym for it. So I was thinking, okay, treat yourself, that we're taking care of ourselves today, like treat yourself, Gucci, yes. But I think the more memorable one, Gucci's memorable for me, and Nicki Minaj. But the one that I am going to say today is chug. Because what we've got 5 minutes. Let's make it quick. Let's get it going. Chug, chug, chug. So I'm going to do this with you. I'm going to step back here to my makeshift desk. So forgive me if my audio volume goes down a bit. And we're going to start our first stretch. This is the ultimate chug, okay? And it's the classic for a reason. We've all done this stretch. So everyone start just by stretching your legs out, leaning back, arms overhead. And then, just your classic desk stretch here. So a couple little focuses. We're gonna hold this for 10 seconds. It's gonna feel like a long time. So starting now, we're at 10 seconds. Try to squeeze your shoulder blades together to engage your upper back. Engage your glutes, and maybe your hips even lift up, maybe the chair kind of rocks back. And then squeeze your quadriceps just to wake up those muscles. Just here for another 4. Just here for 3. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze for 2. For 1. And then you can come down. Nice. So if all of you got is 10 seconds, that stretch is a classic. And your focus is really on using the muscles of your upper back and your glutes to kind of switch the wiring in your brain. Shorten those muscles, get them turned on and awake. All right, so moving on, we're gonna do another little upper back exercise. So arms come out to a goalpost. And the key here is to bring the tips of your elbows forward and then your fingertips back. So we find the external rotators in the shoulder. Nice. And all you're going to do is just reach up however high feels comfortable and then pull down again. And focus on squeezing your shoulder blades together behind you. So there's your upper back, maybe about 4 or 5 reps here. Keeping your shoulders back, keeping them down. Just think the opposite of that rounded forward position. All right, that feels pretty good. All right, we're gonna skip right to glutes since we're in a seat now. So this is a classic figure 4 stretch. You'll cross your left ankle over your right thigh. And then sitting up nice and tall, just hinge forward with a long, flat spine. And you decide how low you go. Maybe just elbows to your shin feels good. If you're really flexible, maybe you can start to reach down towards the floor. You should feel a good stretch through your side seat. Here's the cool part. You can use your breath. So try to breathe down towards your hips. So push your belly out as you breathe in. It makes the stretch a little deeper. All right, so let's do one more breath. This is one of my favorites. Awesome. And we'll come up and switch sides. This time, the right ankle over your left thigh. Finding a long, flat spine, and then coming forward. This is kind of when that email comes in from, I don't know, Linda in HR, and you're like, oh, not today, not the HR email today. Just kidding, Linda. All right, we'll take one more big breath in. Try to send it towards your hips. We'll let it go. And then we'll come on up. All right, so what's the other thing we can do is we can actually come out of our seated position, right? So we're gonna do that today. I'll slide my chair off to the side. Now this is my number one favorite stretch, all right? It's a crescent lunge in yoga. So you'll step your right foot forward, your left foot back, and then reach your arms up overhead. Now here's the key. You want to focus on tilting your pelvis. So try to lengthen your tailbone down towards the ground, almost like you're pulling the fronts of your hips up towards your chin. All right, once you got that little tilt, squeeze your left side glutes, and you'll feel a big stretch in the front of your left hip, your hip flexors, your psoas. Oh, that's everything. And if you really want to take it over the top, grab your left wrist with your right hand and then lean over to the right. And this is like where rainbows come from. It's like just shooting out of your hip flexor right now. Feels pretty good. Take another breath in, and then we'll switch. So carefully step it in. Your right foot goes back, reach up. And remember that nice little sequence. So first tilt your pelvis, lengthen your tailbone down towards the floor. Then squeeze your right side glutes with everything you've got. Then grab your right wrist and lean to the left. And you can just feel that, all that length running down the front of your body. It's a little bit of a balance challenge. I get a little wiggly up here sometimes. Good, not here too long. Let's take just one more big breath in and then let it go. Carefully come in. All right, hamstrings are the last thing today. So feet right underneath your hips. Let's just take a nice forward fold. So it's okay to keep your knees bent here. That feels pretty good. My favorite is to just waggle your tailbone back and forth. So bending one knee, then the other. Maybe shrugging opposite shoulder up towards your ear. Get a little C-shaped stretch. And we'll finish off with a little twist. So bend your left knee a lot. Plant your left hand down and reach your right hand up. You can stay here in the twist, or maybe take a couple big backstroke circles with your right hand, reaching up, back, and down. So again, finding your upper back, turning those muscles on. Nice. I usually do about 3 big circles and then switch. Right knee bends, left hand reaches high. You can stay here or take your backstroke. Once you got your 3 big circles, soften your knees. Gently roll all the way up to standing. Oh, let's do one last good morning stretch. Reach up. And then exhale to let it go. And there's your quick little reset for your body. Guys, you can do that in 5 minutes. If you need a little break from your desk, if you're doing Pomodoro technique, I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I'm Trevor. I'm from the Anschutz Health and Wellness Center. And David mentioned we're on the Anschutz campus. We're doing 14 days free for all of the attendees here today for all of our virtual wellness offerings. So Group X classes, nutrition, and mental well-being resources for free for all of you guys today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trevor. Thanks so much. Each of our panelists today have resources we're going to share with you in our follow-up email. As Trevor mentioned, the Anschutz Health and Wellness Center is offering 2 free weeks of virtual classes, which is great. And that was just such a great exercise. Thank you so much, Trevor, for leading us. Want to mention that if you have questions for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A. I'm recognizing that these exercises are terrific and they may run a little bit longer than we were anticipating. We can keep the webinar open a little bit longer potentially to push the Q&A session a little bit later past the hour, although we understand that some of you may need to leave. I want to honor each of our presenters and the exercises that they've led us or have for us today. So let's move on, and I'm going to shift our focus over to Debbie Belt and mindfulness.
Great, thank you, David. I'm really excited to follow Trevor. Thank you. I think one thing about stretching, a lot of times people don't realize this, but doing yoga and then doing a meditation practice is actually really effective. So being able to stretch and ground yourself in your body, Trevor pointed out, take a deep breath here, pay attention to your breathing. Really, that's just priming you to kind of sit and focus. And so I hope that this order of things works well for everyone today. There is a long history of research around mindfulness meditation since the 50s. I'm sure some of you have heard of various studies around EEG and looking at the brain and different changes in the brain. And as David mentioned in my bio, I'm a clinical psychologist by training and have really seen the effectiveness of using meditation as a skill, as a practice to build mental well-being. And so I've used it with most of the clients that I've ever worked with in some way or another. And so I'm really excited to guide you through a meditation today, but also just talk to you a little bit about it. In terms of working from home, I don't know if anyone else has the feeling of Groundhog Day, but every day feels really similar. And so I wonder if there's mornings where you're like, wait, did I brush my teeth? Did I comb my hair? Did I do this? Because we kind of get into this autopilot mode where we're just kind of going through our routines and not really present in those. And so a lot of times meditation can ground us in the moment. So that gives us a moment to allow thoughts of the past. So kind of rumination about things that might've went wrong, things you wish would have done differently, or thoughts about the future. So anxieties or worrying about the future, things that you have to get done, all of those things. And so similar to stretching and giving your body a break, we also want to give your mind a break, right? We're sitting here all day, we're in go mode a lot of the times. Zoom and email and all of those things that come at you, a lot of times we're multitasking too. And so really the goal of this today is to just give you a brief introduction to meditation. And if you already have a practice, this is just an opportunity for you to practice today. And really the way that we define mindfulness meditation is being focused on the present moment. So allowing those thoughts to fade to the background right now. It's on purpose. So I'll guide you through that as we shift into a posture. And then without judgment. So I invite you to really just meet yourself wherever you're at today. If your mind's all over the place, that's okay. Just recognizing that that's where you are. So really the non-judgmental part of this is really important because we want you to just meet your experience where you're at and be present as much as you can be. And it really varies throughout the day. And so I'll invite you to adopt a comfortable posture in your chair, preferably with your feet flat on the floor, hands resting in your lap. You can either put palms up or palms down. And then allowing your spine to elongate. This is especially useful after all the stretching we just did. And so adopting an erect posture and dignified posture, but not something that's too stiff. You know, you want to feel comfortable. And then if it's comfortable for you, allowing your eyes to close, or if you prefer, you can leave your eyes open and just fix your gaze downward cast towards the floor, kind of unfocused in front of you. Just begin by noticing your body sitting here. So bring your attention to your feet planted on the floor, the sensations of your feet, if they're in shoes or socks, the sensations of the clothing against your feet. Noticing the sensation of your legs against your seat or your chair, your hands in your lap, your posture, and maybe any tension you're holding in your face. So noticing the sensations if your eyebrows are kind of crossed or any kind of tension in your face. And just taking a moment here to ground yourself as we sit here, as we approach this practice. Shifting into this posture helps us tell our brains that we're going to allow everything else to fade to the background in these next few minutes and really just focus on what's happening in our bodies right now. If it's helpful, you can shift or move or adjust. You may want to stretch a little. In today's practice, we're going to focus on mindfulness of the breath. Breath is something that's always with us, can ground us in any moment throughout the day, even if you just need to take a 2-second break. So begin by turning your attention to your breath, allowing everything else to fade, bringing your awareness to the sensation of breathing. Noticing as the air moves in and as it moves out. For some folks, it's helpful to place your hand on your belly. So I encourage you to do that if that would help. Noticing the sensation of your belly as it rises and falls. For others, it's helpful to pay attention to wherever you feel your breath is strongest. So this might be in your nostrils, in your chest and lungs, or in your belly, stomach area. Really observing each breath as a unique instance. No two breaths are the same. And oftentimes, as we do this, our minds will wander, perhaps to sensations elsewhere in our body, or maybe to thoughts. And if it does that, that's okay. These are the moments of mindfulness when you realize your attention has wandered. So go ahead and non-judgmentally turn your attention back to your breath as you breathe in and as you breathe out. The sensations of expansion and perhaps relaxation as you exhale. Again, just meeting your body wherever you're at today. Not trying to change your breath in any way, but just observing whatever is present here. Perhaps shifting your attention to the space between breaths as you breathe in, the pause before you exhale. Again, if your mind wanders, that's completely normal. It's what our minds do. Sometimes they'll take us on a journey, maybe just noting wherever your mind has gone. Perhaps it's memories, thinking about the future, perhaps judgments of not doing this correctly. Just labeling whatever that is. Noting that you're thinking about the future, planning, and then gently turning your attention back to your breath, allowing that thought to pass. Our breath is a really powerful tool for us to ground ourselves in the moment, to shift out of autopilot, perhaps noticing the quality of your breath. If the air is cool as it enters and warms as it exits, noticing if it's deep or shallow. And as we come to the end of this meditation, just recognizing that this is an opportunity for you to be present here in this moment, focused on your own well-being, knowing your breath is always available to you to ground you. On the next inhale, expanding your awareness now to encompass your whole body sitting here, allowing everything to come back into focus, bringing this awareness and alertness to the remainder of our webinar today, and also to the remainder of your day. Whenever you're ready, allowing your eyes to open. I hope that meditation helped you in whatever way that you needed today. Our team at NMHIC here on Anschutz campus has been running something called Mindful Moment, which will be in the resources, but also wanted to just highlight that there's different themes around meditation. As Trevor pointed out, stretching can be really helpful. And so movement is another way, another activity that you can do mindfully, along with gratitude and self-compassion, especially during these times that are difficult. And so, you know, we've seen a lot of positive feedback from the community. We've been running the Mindful Moment program on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and then during the lunchtime on Mondays for the campus, for faculty, staff, and students, and actually expanded it to the public too. And we've just received a lot of positive feedback, you know, taking these breaks to really focus on your well-being. Just as much as we need to stretch our bodies, we also need to take care of our brains. And there is a lot of evidence around meditation helping with anxiety, depression, stress, all of those things. So thank you for the opportunity to lead you through a practice today.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Hopefully you're seeing that we're trying to give you 5-minute exercises that you can do at different points of your day, at different points of your week, ways to continue to build your well-being and your resilience. I know sometimes the idea of a full yoga class or a long meditation can be challenging for people. So this is the idea here, and will be part of the recording, that 5 minutes really does make a difference. Sometimes, as Deborah said, taking a few seconds to pause and catch our breath, or to focus on our breath, can be very helpful. So with that being said, we're gonna move to our third panelist of the day. And welcome Dr. Alex Reed to talk to us a little bit about medical improv and communications. Alex?
Great, thanks so much, David, and great to be here talking with you all. And thanks, Trevor and Debbie. I feel fantastic. I would like to get this every time I am about to go talk. So thanks for those. Those were wonderful and helpful. So what I'm going to talk with you about is communication. We are in these incredibly uncertain times. We are having to navigate uncharted waters, both in our personal lives, in our professional lives, and interpersonally. And one of the things I love about some of the work I get to do is I do improv training, and I do it for medical students and also for resident physicians. And in part, the reason that I teach them this is because something that improv artists and healthcare providers, but really all of us experience day in and day out, is how do you respond effectively in uncertain situations, which is pretty much every situation that we come across. And so that's improvisation theater. And what I do is I'm involved in medical improvisation, which you can see the definition here. It's the adaptation of improvisation theater principles and exercises to enhance such medical skills as communication, teamwork, and cognition, which this all fits in our workplaces as well. So David, if you could go to the next slide. So we're going to actually incorporate a couple of these exercises, and a few things to know about medical improv and rules and skills. The rules that we're going to follow, we're going to pretend for the next few minutes that this webinar is our improv classroom, and in that we're going to have rules that and principles that are going to guide us in the activities that you'll see. And so I love these rules in part because I think they're not only great for a classroom setting, but they're also just great life skills. Tina Fey, in fact, talks about using her improv skills and how these have helped her throughout her life. So the first, and we're going to adhere to all of these, is first, you don't have to be amazing. You don't have to be brilliant. You can just be average. So, which, for many of us, that may seem strange, like, wait a minute, I got to be the best at what I do. Well, for the purposes of our classroom, you don't have to be amazing, just average. The second is that you are all bright people. You've gotten very far in the work that you've done, and you have everything you need on you. And for some reason, if you don't have it, you know how to get it. The third is that mistakes are gifts. So there are no failures. There really are opportunities. We're going to play a little bit more with that. Mistakes, some may think that, there's shame that can go with that. Really, it's an opportunity to change what you're doing technically to then try something different. The next rule, which is one of my absolute favorites, is make your partners look good. You want to make those you're working with look great. In the improv world, before people get on stage to do a show, they will often pat each other on the back and say, I got your back, I got your back. Imagine if you started each workday with your colleagues with that, with that message. Assume good intent. We're always going to be assuming good intent, and we're going to celebrate failure. And in fact, that's going to be our first little exercise. But before we do that, the skills that we're going to be building and working on are attuning. Attuning is really knowing what's going on for yourself and what's going on for others that you're with. Affirming is validating yourself and validating others. And the last part is advancing, is really sort of moving a conversation along. You don't have to agree, but you can affirm, you can attune, and then you can advance. So with that, we're going to try one little exercise. So we're all going to stand up. So stand up, get comfortable. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you something. And this is something you can do both for yourselves. And now that you know this, you'll be able to do it with your colleagues. What we're going to do is something called the failure bow. Now, the failure bow is something that you may have seen in circuses, Cirque du Soleil. What happens is when the trapeze artists are doing these very dangerous high wire acts, they are being brave. They're putting themselves out there. And, at some point they may slip, they fall hopefully into a net. If there wasn't a net, that'd be a very grim circus. And then what do? They tumble out of the net, they take a big bow, they smile, and then they go like this. And everyone goes, yay, even though they just messed up. They made a mistake, and that's okay. We're celebrating their failure. So now we're all gonna do this. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna hold your hands up high, and then on the count of 3, you're all gonna say, and I'll say this too, like you can say, I messed up, I effed up, I screwed up, whatever you wanna say. Then you can take a big bow, you're gonna come up, and then you're gonna smile and clap. So here we go, 1, 2, 3. I messed up. Take that bow and woo! All right, So well done, all. So when I first learned this in Seattle, I was crossing a street, and at a stoplight, I tripped in a pothole. I fell. I got up, took a bow. No one knew what the heck I was doing in traffic, but it was good. I felt good. So you can do this. Now your colleagues will do it. You can also, I always tell our residents, like, don't do this. Don't do this. At the bedside, if you gave the wrong medication, we don't, keep it chill in those settings. So now what we're going to do is we're going to also go over one little communication skill and a little exercise. And for this exercise, I have David Shapiro, who's going to be my colleague. And so we're going to do something that really focuses on these skills of attuning, affirming, and advancing. And so what we're going to do is it's something called paired conversations. And so you can observe, but this can also be something you think about in your workplace and how you communicate with others. So ready to go, David?
I am. Just remind me which one we're doing first. Are we doing
yes? So
and?
I will. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is so just as a reminder, we're going to have a conversation, just saying statements back and forth. In this, though, there will be no questions. So just statements. And I'll say a statement, and then every subsequent statement is going to begin with the words yes, but, and I'll give the topic that we're going to talk about. So let's do the topic of pets. Any questions, David?
No, I'm ready to go.
Okay. All right. So remember, what? Yes, but. So David, I got to tell you, my favorite pet, hands down, are cats. I love my cat. I love to spend time just curling up with my cat.
Yes, Alex, but cats have really a lot of allergens related to them, and they make me sneeze, and they're nice and all, but I itch. Cats allergic.
Yes, but that itching gives you, and those allergies give you an opportunity to try different medications for allergies, or scratch, and maybe that's even relieving. So good stuff.
Yes, but the amount of laundry that it takes when you have a cat, I mean, we're washing things nonstop. We have to redo our bedding all the time. And it's really hard to keep up with a cat around our house.
Yes, but it's such an opportunity to use the laundry machine and really have fresh linens and sheets throughout the home. So it smells just fresh like a spring day. All right, we can stop there. So thanks, David, for that one. Now we're gonna do another one. So in this one, you'll start. I'll give the topic, and after you say your statement, every subsequent statement will begin with the words yes and. So the words yes and. So let's do the topic of food. Topic of food. So you start, David.
Yeah, a new restaurant opened in my neighborhood. It's within walking distance. I went there last night for pizza and subs, and it was terrific. I had such a great time enjoying the walk over and eating at this new local establishment.
Oh, yes. And what a great opportunity, David. You got to get out of the house, explore this new restaurant, support our local economy, and just, look at 4 different walls. It's great.
Yes, you're so right, Alex. And I felt it was great to be in there. They were open at 50% capacity, and I actually saw some neighbors that I hadn't seen in a while. And I felt so much more connected to my community when I walked over, and not to mention the food tasted great.
Yes, and what a wonderful evening. You saw neighbors, you saw people that you haven't seen in a long time, and you got to relax and enjoy yourself. Love it. All right, we can stop there. So thanks, David, for that. From your perspective, any thoughts on what the yes but conversation felt like versus the yes and? What was that like for you?
Well, the 2 things that come to mind are, one, I felt a lot more connected to you, the person I was talking to, whereas in the yes but conversation, I kind of felt like I was out in my own silo or on my own island. And then the other thing is I felt better about this good experience. I felt even more positive about it because you were sort of affirming my positive experience. So those were the two biggest takeaways I had.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thanks for sharing that, David. Yes, I so appreciate what you're sharing. I mean, it's, when yes, but is really just a polite way of saying no. And how often do we hear that day in and day out in conversations, versus yes, and it really is it's this connecting and building. Like I think of our conversation like a pile of bricks, where with the yes, but it's like, I'm putting a brick up, then you're knocking it down. I put a brick up, you knock it down. Versus yes, and it's like we're building a structure. And from that, I mean, we're looking at something interesting. And I think in life, structure is much more interesting to look at than a pile of bricks. Sorry, we're going to do one more quick one. So this last one, this is one of my favorites. So I'll start the conversation. The topic will be, let's do topics of pet peeves. So your pet peeve. And what will happen is, after you make your first or after I make my statement, every subsequent statement will begin with the words, I appreciate you said that because. So I appreciate you said that because. All right, so let's go. I'll start. And yeah, so David, so one of my biggest pet peeves living here in Denver is when people drive through red lights. Drives me nuts. My son actually calls it the Denver Green. So, but it really bothers me.
Alex, I really appreciate you said that, because I have a almost 16-year-old who is learning how to drive. And it's been a really interesting experience over the past 6 months, sort of helping her along her way learning this. And I feel I was really tense in the beginning, and now I feel like I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with it. But so I really appreciate you bringing this up.
I appreciate you said that, David, because my 16-year-old is learning to drive, and that tension is so real. I think I'm going to use some of those exercises that Trevor showed me, so to help relax me when I'm next to my son.
I really appreciate you said that, Alex. There are some things I know that I can control, like maybe what type of car she gets into, but I think that what I fear is everybody else out on the road, and she's got a really great head on her shoulders. I'm really positive and excited about it, and it's just an interesting time in life for sure.
Thanks. Great. Thank you, David. We'll stop there. So let's just for a moment, how did it feel to say those words? I appreciate you said that because.
I think that gratitude is something that we talk about and we work on for like an individual practice. It's something I've tried to bring to team meetings and to management styles as well. Sort of this idea of appreciating people's comments before moving on to the next theme. And so for me, it's just an opportunity to validate that we're both people existing and have different things going on for ourselves.
Great, thanks. And yeah, how did it feel how was it to hear me say those words to you? How did that feel?
Yeah, once again, it was similar to the yes and in that I felt more connected to you and that you got me, or that you appreciated what I had to add to the conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, we would never have a conversation like this in real life. I appreciate you said that. That'd be weird. But when you use those words, there's a few things. Like first, it really does show, that you're focusing, you're paying attention. But it also, for the, as the speaker, it buys you a little time as well to think about what you're going to say. So those are just a few skills. So thanks so much. And yeah, I appreciate you doing that with me, David. Thanks.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Alex. And we know we're getting close to the hour. So a couple things I want to mention in terms of the resources that will be shared with all of you in an email that goes out in the next 48 hours. So we'll have links to the mindfulness meditation practices hosted by the National Mental Health Innovation Center, both a 15-minute one and a 5-minute one. You can see the times up on your screen. As Trevor mentioned, there will be an opportunity to redeem a 2-week free trial at the CU Anschutz Health and Wellness Center, their virtual programming. And then Alex will also, we have a resource shared about medical improv. I want to make sure that also, as some of you may be leaving the webinar first, I'm able to stay for a few minutes after the hour to answer some questions. If our panelist needs to drop off, we understand that as well. Hopefully you can stay for just a few more minutes, but as you close out, there will be a link that pops up to complete a survey. And so please provide that feedback to us. In terms of questions, I wanted to ask Trevor first about a quick stretch for neck and shoulders. Any ideas for us for a quick neck and shoulder stretch?
Absolutely. Okay, and this one's great because you can do it actually while you're sitting in your desk. So here, I'm gonna change my angle here. Okay, so you're gonna reach one arm up and over and kind of cup the opposite ear. And then here's the secret sauce. The other hand grabs the seat of the chair, all right? You're gonna tilt your head forward and down. And so you should feel that stretch on the side of your neck, but then try this. Try pulling on the seat of the chair to intensify that stretch a little bit. So what that does is it just draws the shoulder down a little further, and boom, you find a little more length on the side of your neck. That's one of my favorites.
Thank you so much, Trevor. Really appreciate that. We have a question for Debbie about breathing techniques. Breathing in through the mouth versus breathing into the stomach versus breathing into the chest. I know we're trying to not be too judgmental with our mindfulness practices, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts about, where we breathe, where and how we breathe into with our meditation practice.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I purposely don't direct around that because I want people to do whatever is kind of comfortable for them. Everyone kind of does things differently. And then especially if you do yoga, you're gonna most likely breathe out through your mouth. But I would say to take a non-judgmental approach of whatever's comfortable for you, whatever is gonna help you kind of pay attention to your breath and not get caught on, am I doing this right? Or is there something wrong? I think, especially for people, if they have a cold and you're congested, that can be really distracting. And so being able to just, whatever it is that feels comfortable for you to focus on your breath, I say use whatever works for you. So I don't really want to prescribe a way to do that.
Terrific. I agree. Thanks so much, Debbie. I see a lot of questions coming up about your continuing education credits. So take the survey as you log out, and there's an opportunity there to input your CHES ID number. We know how important those CHES credits are for all of you participating in CHES. So at the completion of the survey, you put in your CHES ID number, and then we will follow up with you to ensure that you have your certificate of attendance and that you can report that. We report them quarterly to CHES. So the best way to do that is take the evaluation survey at the end of the webinar. We will send out a link to the survey in the follow-up email, but primary objective one is taking that survey. Any thoughts, Trevor, back to you for a question on if there's negative impact of having standing desks. I personally, as you can see, I've been sitting and standing throughout. I think the biggest thing for me is shifting my movement, but there's a number of people who wanted to ask the question, do you know of any negative side effects to having standing desks?
I think standing desks can have negative impacts if that's the only thing that you're doing, and depending on your posture. A lot of low back issues can come from, again, just holding that position. Maybe you're kind of shifting your weight side to side throughout the day. But I would I think you're doing the right thing, David. I think kind of switching it up, standing for a bit, sitting for a bit, taking a walk when you have a few minutes. I think all of that helps the most.
Thanks. We have some webinars about office ergonomics, and really what we say is that anything that you remain static in for too long is not good for you. So whether that be standing in the same position for too long, sitting, obviously contracting for too long, you want to